David Taub here with Tate Hill. He is thinking about running for City Council, District 3, the seat currently held by Oliver Baines. Tate, thanks for joining us here on GV Wire. Big issue coming up in the budget we talked about this week. Where do you stand on proposing a legal defense fund for unauthorized immigrants who are living in Fresno?
Well, I think we need to explore what are the best ways for us to utilize the resources within our community. Do individuals need support in looking at immigration issues? Yes, they do. But I think there are a number of community partners that are available within our community that we can connect them to the resources that will help them be able to find a way to be able to support them becoming legal citizens.
So would you support spending city public money on helping somebody who's going through a deportation hearing?
No, it's a big challenge. So will we have enough resources to support everyone that needs that assistance? I think the city leadership should really explore ways that we can find community resources through foundations, legal organizations to provide the necessary resources. Whether we're spending, $1 million, $2 million, there's a lot of need in that particular area, and I think we can better leverage from a bully pulpit perspective ways to really find the needed resources to be able to support residents. I think what we have done as a city to make sure that people can feel safe is really important, and the city has a role in that.
In that same vein, I know it's a broad definition, there's no exact finite definition, but should Fresno declare itself a sanctuary city, and what would that mean to you?
Yeah, no, and that has been some of the challenge of what is a sanctuary city. One of the things that the city of Fresno has done and made very clear, in particular the police department, that it is not in the business of trying to round up individuals that may be believed to be undocumented. And I think that's something that the city should have a strong stance on in communicating that. Its role is to protect the residents of our city and our community, and it should do that. And so I think when you look at, how do we support individuals within our community, we need to, at a national level, have a pathway of citizenship. It's important here in the Central Valley for economic purposes, but also just really from the human element. People should be able to have a clear pathway into citizenship here in the United States.
Speaking of economics, that's sort of your background as the former CEO of the Black Chamber of Commerce here in Fresno. Of course, jobs are always a good thing. Nobody is against jobs, but when you have people working, they need to live. They need to live somewhere. And we've always heard about the housing crunch, the affordable housing crunch. So as a potential city councilman, what would you do to help ease the burden of the housing supply in Fresno?
Well, I think there's two things. One is we need to make sure that there's a very clear pathway for housing development here in the Central Valley. It's needed at all levels. Affordable housing in our urban and central area of Fresno is extremely needed. We need to make sure that we go forward with the general plan and some of the specific plans that are moving forward in some of our neighborhoods so that there's really a clear pathway for housing. And then looking at, again, how do we partner with community foundations, banking, financial institutions to provide financial education, homeowner down payment assistance, and financial education so people are prepared to be able to take advantage of those housing opportunities. Our housing prices have risen dramatically in the last 5 years and making some challenges for individuals to buy a home. And so I think there's a way the city could use CDBG or home dollars to be able to support down payment assistance. We've done it in the past. About 10 years ago, we had programs to support down payment assistance and financial education so people were prepared, because home ownership is important. It's a critical piece for neighborhoods in our city, and we as a city want to do everything that we can to support individuals towards home ownership.
Right, that sounds like some policies to help with the demand end, but with the supply end, would you be willing to lack some policies for Fresno, which there found its way on another national study that it's in the top 10 in the nation of regulations that help prevent housing supply in the cities? Would you be willing to support policies that make it easier for home builders to build homes?
I think we need to have a clear pathway so that home builders understand what are the requirements, what are the land use opportunities, and particularly some of our urban and central parts of the city where it tends to be a challenge to build houses. The cost of building housing, the infrastructure needs are there. And so we need to, as a city, create a very clear and a simpler process that homes can be built in any part of the city, whether it's north or south, that a home builder is encouraged to build those housing developments in those neighborhoods, and that there's a real clear pathway. Making sure that we actually follow the general plan and so forth that we have, and support housing that follows that general plan. If there are barriers, we've tried to do a couple of different ways of addressing some of those barriers, but particularly for some of our neighborhoods that have been challenged, how do we fast track housing development in those areas so it incentivizes people to build and create homes in our urban and centers neighborhoods?